Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back. If you're new, I'm Periwinkle Jellyfish, and I'm a silly little person that draws silly little characters and some dreamscapes. While I was hanging out with some friends, I randomly had the idea for a dreamscape pop up in my head, and once I got back home, I got to work and tried to put this into Clip Studio Paint to the best of my abilities and get that idea onto paper or screen, I suppose. Uh, I wanted to incorporate a few new ideas for dreamscapes that I had. I've been thinking a lot about my dreamscapes and how to improve them and make them seem like dreams without having to literally say that in a video, so that someone who just randomly sees my drawings will be able to kind of infer or guess that this is a dream and none of the things that are in this image are real. Figuring out my dreamscapes is definitely going to be a long process and going to take me a lot of time, and it's not going to be able to be done in just one sitting, and I'm definitely not going to be able to figure it all out in one go. So in multiple drawings, I've just been, trying to slowly incorporate different ideas and see how they work out, and see what needs to be tweaked, see what needs to be improved, see what doesn't seem to work, and see how it goes. So in this dreamscape, I'm incorporating a distorted sense of gravity, or distorted gravitational pull, I suppose. So as you can see, her hair is kind of flowing around, almost like she's underwater. I wanted my dreamscapes for, or some of them at least, for gravity and things around it to kind of work in its own weird way, and for everything to kind of flow around like it's almost underwater. I made her dress a little bit flowy as well to kind of suggest this a little bit more. I thought about adding dangly bits to her dress, but in the end I decided to go for something more simplistic, since with the plans I had for the background, I thought it might help things stay a little bit more in order. For this dreamscape, I wanted to play around with having lots and lots of ribbons in the background and see how it looks. And of course, I wanted to have a lot of bubbles there too, just to see what it's like. I was inspired of this idea from Bee and Puppycat. It's a really good show. I would recommend it. I'm drawing just a slice of cake on a plate, just floating around in this background because I thought it would be fun to draw that. And I just wanted to have a random object in the background, and a slice of cake seemed like a pretty good option. I added a few bubbles and floating eyes in the background because I thought floating eyes just in random places might be a good way to enhance the weirdness. And I added a couple of bows, basically just kind of creating almost like a mind map of things for my dreamscapes, if that makes sense. I wanted her to be interacting with something random in her dreamscape, and I was thinking about it for a while, decided to draw a couple other things while I brainstormed, and eventually I decided to create a jellyfish because my name is Periwinkle Jellyfish, and I like drawing jellyfish. I just need to improve on it a little bit. So I want lots of ribbons, bows, jellyfish, and eyes in my dreamscapes at least. That's something that I know for certain. I want those to be incorporated to be kind of like a signature, so you can tell what in my drawings are dreamscapes and what's not, or at least that's an idea I've had. So I decided to put all of these in a dreamscape because I thought it would be fun to have them all floating around in this strange little abyss that this girl has found herself in. I've been experimenting with adding just noodle limbs into my art style and way of drawing people because I thought it might be fun and just a thing to do that might make my art style stand out a little bit more. And I've also been practicing different hand positions, which so far has been going really well. This girl's expression is calm and seemingly unbothered by this dreamscape and this strange place she's found herself in. I also think that she might be a smart cookie, and maybe she's starting to realize that she's in a dream. She's reaching out to touch this jellyfish, so maybe she's testing a theory that none of this is real. Maybe she's thinking, if I don't feel this jellyfish when I touch it, then this is definitely not real. This is all just a dream. So I will leave what she's actually thinking up to the interpretation of whoever is viewing this drawing. Moving on, I was drawing her hair and making sure that it's all very flowy and moving with a mind of its own. I gave her some nice frilly sleeves, and I added a little bit of lace to it, And then I moved on to drawing her dress. I tried my best not to make it conflict too much with the background, but in the end, I'm going to have to erase a little bit to fix a few things. Now I am just continuing on with my drawing. I decided to get rid of the stars motifs in her dress just because I wanted to keep her overall design pretty simple. I gave her circular eye shapes instead of the oval or siren ones that I usually give my characters to give her a look of more personality and, not personality, curiosity is what I meant to say. Now I'm moving on to drawing the things in the background. So we have the jellyfish and its tentacles and the ribbons and that bunny that's facing from behind and that gorgeous little fluffy tail. Now I'm drawing these bows. I was experimenting with a different way to draw bows, and I really like how this turned out, so I might use this method more often. Goodness, I cannot talk today. I'm adding a very large ribbon in front, and trying to make sure nothing conflicts or overlaps too much, but the line art was being a little bit weird, so I couldn't tell at first. I did a few more bows and a few more bubbles, and some stars in the background, a moon that's very tiny, another star, and now we moved on to that lovely little cake that is making me hungry looking at it. I quickly traced over my original rough sketch, cleaning up any roughness that was in there, and I finished up my line art pretty quickly, and then we could move on to the coloring. Now we're moving on to another thing that I wanted to experiment with in this drawing, which was hypersaturation in my colors. I wanted everything in this drawing to be very, very vibrant and saturated. I wanted things to be very starkly contrasted with realistic colors, to the point that everything feels really unnatural, if that makes sense. So it kind of hints at the dreamscape-ness of this. I'm now coloring in the hair streakies. This is a signature to all my characters. I was trying to keep that vibrantness in my hair streakies as well, trying to not get too muted in the color palette. So I was trying my best to get this done really quickly, but sometimes I have to erase on overlapping pieces. This is a very, very fun process. It can be a little bit intricate and precise and takes a little bit of time. And I tend to notice a few mistakes that I make along the way during the line art or part of the coloring process. So I was finishing up some of the last details of this, making sure that every area seems to have a good amount of streakies, and then I started to move on to the dress. This character's hair color and color of her dress kind of reminds me of Arrietty from The Secret World of Arrietty. The colors are slightly different, but overall she just kind of reminds me of that character. The Secret World of Arrietty was my favorite Studio Ghibli movie growing up, and I used to love watching it on road trips. I remember putting on that movie and listening to the opening music, and just a wave of nostalgia hits me whenever I put on that movie still. I love it so much. We're getting a little bit off topic, so let's move on. I was coloring in the dress and finishing up on that. Now I am getting that line of that line wave thing on her dress. I tried to color this in very precisely and not make too many mistakes. I gave it a rainbow gradient because I thought a rainbow would be really fun to add. Now I'm doing the exact same thing with her sleeve, just copying down the colors and making a mini version of it. And once that is all nice and pulled together, I move on to coloring in the white part of the sleeve. And I gave her little bead bracelet some slightly different turquoise colors. Now I'm moving on to some of the background, and I'm first coloring in those eyes that are just staring at random things. They're not staring at her, not all of them anyway, but they're just glancing at all the chaos around them. I thought that some eyes that are just staring at just random things would be really fun and just add a little bit of weirdness to my dreamscapes. And I want a dash of weird and a hint of even more weird in my dreamscapes. So I thought that would be a fun way to incorporate that into my dreamscapes. In hindsight, I wanted to make everything a lot more saturated than it actually did become, although I'm not sure how I would have even pulled that off because I was kind of going to the extreme levels of neonness, but I think I have a few ideas in my head on how to get things a little bit more how I want things to look, so yeah, maybe we'll see a bit more improvement in the future. Hopefully, at least. Now I'm drawing that bow, or I'm coloring it in at least. I added a nice vibrant pink that looks very similar to her dress, has a similar color to it. I added a slightly different color to the inward part of the bow to add a little bit of shading and make things feel slightly realistic, I guess. Although everything else in this drawing is absolute chaos, so. Now I'm coloring in all those lovely ribbons and now some of those bubbles. I wanted the bubbles to be many different colors, and I made shiny highlights to them as well. Now I'm coloring in another bow and giving this one a nice blue. Just erasing a few mistakes and coloring it in, and now we finished that. Now I'm giving this ribbon a similar color to her dress, but adding a fun yellow gradient to it because I felt like we didn't have enough yellow in there. So I also made the little bunny butt yellow as well. And I gave it a light green tail. It kind of reminds me of lemon and lime, the color palette, I mean. So that's fun. Now I'm coloring in the cake. I gave it a nice cakey color, literally, and then I started to color in what is next? The strawberries, I think. Oh, nope, I lied. It was the frosting. Now we color in the strawberries. So we finish up that really quick, color in that plate also very quickly, and start to color in the stars. I want these stars to have a lot of different colors, so I just had fun with choosing random colors. Then I realized I completely forgot to color in the shoes of this character, so I just gave her the same color as her dress to make everything seem cohesive. I colored in her skin, and then was careful with her hands. And then I realized that I had colored over the white part of her the sleeve, so that was fun to deal with. I colored everything in really carefully because the bucket tool wouldn't work for this situation. I then added a little bit of shading to her to her legs, and then I tried to do a little bit to her palms, but in the end everything I tried just didn't look quite right. So in the end I decided to scrap the idea and move on to the rest of the drawing. I'm starting to color in her eyes now, so I'm adding in the sclera, and I decided to make her eyes a nice pink since she seems to have a warm pink theme going here. Then I added a blue gradient and a yellow highlight to it, and to complement the yellow I made the jellyfish yellow as well, and added a bunch of warm colors to it because I thought that would be nice, and I felt like we didn't have enough warm colors in this drawing yet, or at least not enough yellows, so I kind of went from there. So I'm coloring this all in and doing this really quickly. I think coloring in the jellyfish was probably one of the most fun parts, even though it was one of the most short. I quickly colored in the background. I wanted it to look like she was just floating in this very hyper-saturated, spacey sky. I used the sparkle tool to add some stars and kind of just went wild with it, trying to make everything not look like it was just horizontal and vertical lines. I tried to blend it a little bit. Had to try it a couple times before it started to look right, though. So I tried again, and things were starting to look a little bit better. I added some purple lighting and some more stars. Tried to make fixed the stars a little bit and added some bigger ones. And then things are starting to look a little bit better. So now we're moving on to rendering. Now we're moving on to another idea that I had, which was very colorful line art that is brighter than the actual drawing, if that makes sense. So everything is strictly neon colors. In the end, this did not turn out the way I wanted it to in my head, but I reviewed this drawing later on and I realized what I had done wrong. So moving on, I'll try out a few different processes that I have in my head that I think might work. Here is the finished drawing, and overall, this didn't turn out the way I wanted it to in my head, but this was my first test for a different aesthetic, and first tries are always going to be a little bit wonky. But I think this definitely deserves a little bit more experimentation and attempts, so we'll see how things go in the future. Thank you so much for watching this video through to the end, and I really appreciate it. I believe that's all, so I will see you in the next video. Bye!